Hello, my name is Gary Mansfield, and this is a bonus episode of the Ministry of Arts podcast. Now, as ever, let's begin by banging these bongos.
Yeah, right. Crazy.
Hello and welcome to bonus episode number 29 of the Ministry of Arts podcast. Today I'm taking you to meet Tere Chad and Caroline Russell, who are both members of the Royal Society of Sculptors. They're going to be telling us about the exhibition they're in, along with round about another 30 members of the Royal Society of Sculptors, called On the Edge. On the Edge is taking place at the Espacio Gallery in Bethnal Green Road, London E2, from the 14th to the 19th of March. But to tell you more of who, why, what, where and when, here is Tere Chad and Caroline Russell. This morning I'm with Tere Chad and Caroline Russell, and you're going to tell us about an exhibition that's coming up called On the Edge.
Okay, so the exhibition is about the world being on the edge at a time when the world is on the edge of uncertainty with climate change, war in the Ukraine. There's a lot going on. How can we respond to that as a group of artists? There's about 30 artists. Most of us are from England, but we've got a couple of Ukrainian sculptors that are also joining us. And it's about all of our responses to the world at the moment.
And you mentioned the world on the edge. What directions are some of the artists looking at? You mentioned about the war in Ukraine, the climate change.
I guess some artists, for example, are taking it in a very literal way, and they're kind of like using different things that have happened this past over the past month. But other artists are more speaking about the theme in a more abstract way and more about the feeling of being in the edge. For example, the piece of Denise Bryan, that's a simulation of like a mountain, is more like I would say like a landscape in the edge, but it's not necessarily addressing any particular topic. So I guess we have given the freedom to keep a concept that's broad enough that anyone could respond within the group, but also to have a direction so that we have a consistent narrative of what we want to communicate.
You mentioned that there's around 30 artists. How many of them are from the Royal Society?
All of them.
Oh, wow, okay.
It's a registration of members by the... We met on Zoom. It started off all through the pandemic. We all had, mainly the London group, we were talking on Zoom, and we got to know each other through that. And that's how the exhibition started, was just us talking and what are we working on, why we're working on it, what sort of work we're making, what's going on at the moment. And from that, we quite naturally decided we wanted to exhibit together. So it's been a really lovely thing that's been going on for quite a few years of us gradually getting to know each other and working together. So yeah, it's quite exciting.
I love that a common narrative has formed out of just a conversation between a couple of dozen people, and slowly it cuts away until you're all talking about the world on the edge, as it were. Where's the exhibition taking place?
It's at Espacio Gallery in 159 Bethnal Green Road, and it's from the 14th to the 19th of March.
Good.
So it's coming up really soon.
The curatorial way we arrange pieces has been in the ground floor. We have selected the pieces that connect maybe more with the theme of the war. And then in the basement, we have selected the pieces that connect more to climate change or the climate crisis. With some pieces, we also have kind of like arrange them according to the colors or textures or forms. And one of the pieces I particularly like a lot, for example, is a piece of Barbara Beyer that's kind of like a sinking boat.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a good metaphor to what's going on with our world, because it almost feels that we have like too much to carry on and we're kind of like sinking. And that maybe also connects to, of course, maybe my own particular practice. But then the other pieces that, for example, in the basement that respond to the idea of the climate crisis and how some species are in danger of extinction. So there's one artist, for example, Christy Symington, that she has a piece where she's speaking about the extinction of tigers. And one of the interesting things she discovered was that the region of Ukraine used to have tigers. So then it also somehow connects with the fact of the place where we have the war in Europe at the moment. There's another piece which I find quite beautiful, and in a way which is Every Heart is on the Edge from Stephen Duncan. This is a bronze piece where it has like 3 different levels, and it's almost like a kind of like building in decay, and you can kind of like see through it.
Yeah, yeah.
So it somehow interprets in a maybe more literal way of this idea of ruins. But then, for example, Sherry Gold, who has Warrior 1 and 2, she also speaks about decay, but more from the perspective of climate change, because I guess this was a piece that was something that it was not intentional, but she had this portrait made in cement that started like decaying from the rain. And she's not sure if there was acid rain at her place or if the mix of the cement was not properly done.
Yeah.
But the thing is that you see this face that's totally like rotten and melting, which is quite striking. And then she got a mold of this kind of like melting face and replicated in metal. So then you see one face in one state, but then the other face is still kind of like decaying. Then also we have, for example, pieces like the one from Bryony Marshall, which also have a maybe more educative concept behind, because she has been working with children at school, and she does this kind of like casting with soil and garbage. And she's going to be doing a similar workshop on the Saturday afternoon of the exhibition. And we have other pieces like Elspeth Billy Penfold's piece, which is inspired in the Kipu, which is a counting system from the Andes. From they normally say it's from the Incas, but some research say it's from older tribes than the Incas. And she has been using like this methodology to organize some artwork. So she's also going to be doing an artwork on the Saturday of the exhibition. One of my favorite pieces is the one of Emma Woffenden, which is called Mother of the Soldier. It's an abstract interpretation of 2 figures, and one is stepping down on the other, but it kind of like leaves some interpretation to whether it's either the soldier that's kind of like dying or the mother like struggling because she knows she's losing her son. And I guess that maybe what makes this exhibition different from others is that normally exhibitions are moments for gathering and celebration of a period of time, and it's like an end of a period and a beginning of a new one, because normally you exhibit something that you've been working on, and it also allows you to work in something new. But I guess it's difficult to think about this exhibition as a moment of celebration, because we've invited 2 artists from Ukraine, and we also have a member who's from Iran. So in kind of like unsettling time and difficult times, we're trying to somehow portray and reflect upon why art is still important and why do we have to keep on creative.
Well, you mentioned there about 2 Ukrainian artists. When we spoke in person a couple of weeks ago, Tere, you mentioned that there was a missile part coming over from Ukraine, a Russian missile part. Is that being a part of the exhibition?
Yes, so it's a really, I don't know if beautiful is really the word, but it is a very aesthetic piece, I would say.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder of what's happening, isn't it?
Yeah, and this piece is called Ares Cold Smile. It's from Oles Sidoruk. It has this kind of irony, because when you see it at the beginning, it is quite beautiful, but then when you know the story behind, you somehow feel quite affected or moved by it. and it's a face of the Greek god Ares, with that in bronze, that has incorporated a fragment of a Russian missile that was found in the area of Bucha. And one of the challenges, because we've been speaking with Boris and Oles during this whole process, of course, with certain limitations, because sometimes they don't have the best connection, and also the heating system has been cut down. Sometimes they haven't found electricity to work. So it has been quite challenging moving, but also I think that it's important that in these times people can keep on working. And because they're working for some commission for the military in Ukraine, they have permission to practice as artists. So they take as seriously their work as an artist as being in the front line.
Wow.
And when I was speaking about this piece with Oles, I said, Oles, I love it, but how are we going to make it come to the UK and cross the borders? Because it's a fragment of a Russian rocket. So what are we going to do with it? I guess the curatorial approach we have had in the team has always been like being very open to accept any kind of pieces, but within time, resources, and space constraints. But it's always about being as open as possible, but trying to make it possible. So speaking with Oles, I said, well, I think that the only way this is going to come through is through a diplomatic bag, because I don't know how we're going to get the costume permits to get that through. And so Oles and Boris told me, well, we do have some connection with the Lithuanian embassy, but maybe it's better if we manage to get in contact with the Ukrainian embassy in London. And of course, they've been terribly busy in the Ukrainian embassy. It's probably the busiest embassy at the moment in London. So they emailed them, like, I don't know, it was maybe mid-December or whatever, and we were not really having many answers. And I just said to Oles, and I was trying to call and nobody was answering. And then I said, you know what, I'm going to go and knock the door and see if they answer, because I guess that's the only way we were receiving an answer. And I went just cycling with my visibility jacket. So I thought, well, probably they don't receive many people with visibility jackets every day. And then a very kind man came out named Roman, and he committed to get in touch with Alisa, who is the cultural attaché. And Alisa has been so kind because she managed to arrange the diplomatic bag. And last week, these two big crate boxes were brought to my studio by two Ukrainians, which is quite extraordinary. And it's probably the most beautiful crates I ever seen in my life, because they're just so beautifully packed. And they have also this kind of olive green stripes to hold the boxes, which is somehow, I don't know, it was just quite poetic in a way, I would say.
Has the box become part of the sculpture?
I don't think we will exhibit the boxes, but they're quite beautiful boxes. I remember I shared the images in the WhatsApp chat with the whole group, and someone was saying, well, it is probably the most beautiful crate I ever seen in my life.
Well, I like the fact that in this digital world where connections are made at the tap of a key, sometimes you can't beat just going knocking on somebody's door and having that personal connection. That's great. What have you got in the exhibition, Caroline?
Okay, so my piece is called Flying Free, and it's birds, and it's the idea of migration and also positivity, and that sort of migration and war can kind of...
Migration is so relevant at the moment, isn't it? With people fleeing, not just Ukraine, there's people having to flee Turkey at the moment because of the earthquake, or parts of Turkey. There's so many nations that are migrating, and we used to think animals migrating, but now it's become so relevant that it's people migrating in mass numbers. And your work reflects that, I presume.
It's about freedom and being able to move. Almost like, it's about people, and it's of birds.
And what is the material it's made of?
It's jesmonite, so it's
oh, nice.
Yeah, it's coloured jesmonite. So it was partly the material is also a freedom in itself. It's just made directly in jesmonite. It hasn't used foundries or anything because I wanted to try and make something that was a bit more environmentally friendly, because I think bronze casting is terrible for the environment, the holds and all sorts of things. So it was trying to find a freedom in that as well. So the sort of working directly in a material, it's just me, I'm making it on my own, and there's no waste, it's just the piece. So that felt important for this exhibition when we were talking about the impact of our work on the environment and how sculpture is not always great for the environment. And I'm doing a lot of work in stone now as well, because that feels better for the environment. But it's from talking to these amazing people and these different artists, getting all these ideas, I think my work has actually changed a lot in the last few years.
Brilliant.
These wonderful connections that we've made. It's been an amazing thing to be part of. It really has.
Well, that just goes to show that once you start talking to other people about their practice, about their thoughts, their ideas, how it emits from one person into another, and they all just sow the seed in each other's minds, and what grows from there. What are you showing, Tere?
I'm showing a piece that's called Portable Hope. So it's two ceramic figures that they simulate like alpinists, and they're falling down and trying to grasp to a necklace. And this necklace is a Victorian chain where I have incorporated elements of the namisto. The namisto is the traditional necklace from Ukraine. So the reason why I've done this is because since the war began, I've been constantly reflecting. If I have to leave my place in 5 minutes, what do I take?
Yeah.
And I probably would make a backpack with some essential things, and I would carry on my jewelry, and maybe a necklace my grandmother, who passed away last year, gave me. And I think that it's, well, I do have, I did train 7 years as a silversmith, and therefore I have a special connection with jewelry, but I do think that jewelry has a very intimate connection, and it's most likely what people would carry from one place to another when they're migrating. But also it's something that will open you up possibilities in a new place. So it has this kind of like, I would imagine that when people have to sell these pieces, it's actually quite sad.
Yeah. If I could just speak for a moment, coming away from the exhibition and to you two in front of me, what has been your art journey, Tere? Where did you grow up? How did you get involved within the arts?
I am from Chile, so I lived most of my life there, except a brief period where I lived in Memphis in the US. So I grew up in Santiago. Santiago is a modern city, but it's also a place like full of contradictions, because it has a strong Western influence, but you still can see things from maybe like the pre-Columbian tribes. So you grew up with this kind of like mixed heritage where everything is possible. Like I know this might sound very very stereotypical, but when you think of Latin America, I think that the best author in describing it is probably the Colombian writer Garcia Marquez. But I think because he manages to somehow portray this kind of like surreal place where everything is possible. And then I do have a strong English heritage, because actually my surname is Chadwick. So I decided to come to the UK 7 years ago. No, 6 years and a half, really. And I came to study first. So I did 2 masters, one at Central St. Martin's, one at the Royal College of Art. And since then, I've been working internationally and meeting amazing people, and especially through the Royal Society of Sculptors.
And you are a part of the Royal Society yourself now?
Yes, I became a member on 2021.
Brilliant. That was a good time, right?
Yeah, excellent.
I could imagine. And Caroline, what was your journey into the arts?
So I've been a professional sculptor for about 30 years, but I didn't go to art school. I'm self-taught.
Excellent.
So the Royal Society of Sculptors, I've been a member of that for probably about 20 years. And especially recently, it's just been the most incredible support, to sort of, particularly for someone who didn't go to art school. I've learned so much just from the other sculptors and and from being around them, I feel like that's been my kind of education in a way.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And what was your introduction into art, even from a child? Did you have art in the home growing up?
Yeah, my uncle was an artist, my parents weren't. But I've always drawn, and I've always just needed to express myself. I think I have a real need to make stuff and to create stuff, and I always have.
And did it start as a hobby?
I was working as a journalist, actually.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and I got made redundant, and I had a bit of time, and I just did an evening class in sort of clay modelling with a figure.
Nice.
Unemployed at the time, and I was in a dole office, and there were these fighting dogs. I was like, I have to get out of here. I cannot do this. Yeah. And then there was a sign, sort of, be your own boss, become self-employed. I was like, I'm going to do that. I'll do anything.
That sounds good. Yeah.
And so I just became self-employed and started making stuff and selling it, and I've been doing it ever since. I've just kind of found a way to make it fun. Yeah.
Great story. Great story.
Yeah, very happy.
But I would like to add to what Caroline is saying. I mean, I guess most of the artists you meet, you've always been creative. So I always find it a very odd question when they ask you, like, when did you become an artist? And you're like, oh, well, actually, I think I've always been an artist, because it's something that comes up since your early childhood, and there's no explanation for it. I guess you're just, in my theory, you're just born as an artist, and there's nothing you can do about it.
I sort of bucked that trend because I had no interest in the arts whatsoever. I'd never been a part of it. I'd never really created anything. And then I got pushed into an art class and then just fell in love with it in my mid-20s. Maybe I was always creative, who knows? Yeah, 20 odd years later, I'm still in love with it.
But I guess even if you come across it, you need to have a creative soul. I don't think that's something you can really like develop just with classes, because you need to have a passion inside, or a need of expressing emotions.
Yeah, possibly. Is there anyone who's not able to see the exhibition? How would they be able to find information online, be it website or social media?
So if people cannot attend to the show, I would strongly recommend them to watch a panel discussion we have with Artists at Risk, which is a non-profit organization that they're actually helping to give refuge and residency to artists who are in war zones or in regimes where they cannot really practice as artists. And in that panel, we also had present the two Ukrainian artists, Boris Filov and Oles Sidoruk, and we also had the chair of Sustainability First, Phil Barton. So this is in YouTube online. We have a link of Eventbrite that I can share with you, Gary, so that you can copy it with the podcast. But if you get both into the website of the Royal Society of Sculptors and you check the members event, it's possible to find it. And also, if you check the Instagrams of the curators, you can also find it. So my Instagram is at Tere, so Tere Chad, and maybe Caroline can give her Instagram and Emma's Instagram as well.
Okay.
Also, we have an Instagram for the group, which is hashtag on the edge RSS. Mine is at Caroline Russell Sculpture, and Emma's is at Emma Elliott Art.
Super.
Okay, so it's going to be at the Espacio Gallery, which is 159 Bethnal Green Road, London E2, and it's from the 14th to the 19th of March. And we're open Tuesdays to Saturdays, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So,
brilliant.
We are going to be having like lots of small events, and it would be nice if people could join these events, and not only the private view where we will have amazing Chilean wines from Arboleda Winery. But the reason why I'm inviting people for events is because we want to like open up the conversation behind the theme. So I guess that the guided tours and the workshops are going to be a great opportunity to kind of like expand this conversation, and maybe like keep on developing this concept, and then doing another exhibition or something else will come up. So I guess it would be great to have everyone who's interested in the topic, especially coming to the events.
Brilliant. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a great exhibition.
Thank you so much.
Very good luck to you. See you later.
Bye-bye.
If you've got an exhibition or any other creative project within the arts, or even just want to promote your own artwork, you could do that in podcast form similar to the one you've just listened to. They start at a convenient price point that is comfortable for any artist working on a budget. This podcast itself is created by working artists, and we know how important that is. So to find out more information, you can email us on ministryofartsorg@gmail.com or on Instagram @ministryofartsorg. Ta-da!